After Riot released new patch which claims to improve intentional feeding detection, I have started experimenting. Has it improved at all? Later Riot also made even further improvements on their intentional feeding detection system. In this video we are experimenting intentional feeding in Aram game mode. For all of those who don't know how intentional feeding detection system works, I created fresh account just to give you an example how it can detect intentional feeding. If you run it down mid with new account, it can detect you intentional feeding and it will ban you after one game. After that one game I waited about 10 minutes and after logging back to League I got banned. After relogging I got 14 days ban from intentional feeding. This means it is viable to use fresh accounts on intentional feeding experiments. Someone might ask, why would anyone intentional feed in Aram game mode? Usually if someone refuses to give me champion I want to play, I will just troll their game. I am such a nice troll, so I give them warning what will happen if they don't give me champion I want to play. Some players will give me champion I want to play, but those who refuse to give it to me have to face consequences. I go over different intentional feeding strategies on each experiment. If current intentional feeding experiment fails, I move to little softer experiment. If current intentional feeding experiment doesn't get me banned, then my next experiment will have even harder intentional feeding. On first experiment I build movement speed items and run it down mid while avoiding to deal any damage to enemies. Getting kills and assists and dealing damage while intentional feeding is great way to reduce risk getting banned, but I want to take things even further. Also not dying under turrets is the key, avoiding getting banned, but in this experiment I try my best to die under turrets. I intentional feeded 3 games with this strategy and my scores were so bad that I should get banned. I also got reported every single game, but as we all know after game reports are useless. I also asked players to report me like it would make any difference. After waiting about 10 minutes I logged back to League and I did not get banned from intentional feeding. On second experiment I do same as before, but I don't level up any abilities and I don't buy any items. I tried to come up with even more obvious trolling in games and I hoped I could trigger the system and get myself banned. If Riot could detect me intentional feeding they would ban me after one game, but I just want to be sure my intentional feeding strategy is undetected, so I played 2 games. Sometimes enemies were so trash that they managed to lose the game. As usual I got reported every single game, but after logging back to League I did not get banned. I am thinking, does intentional feeding detection system even exist in this game mode? I have done my best to get myself banned, but somehow Riot just refuses to ban me. I became so confident about this, so I went to my main account and used it for intentional feeding. On first game on my main account I did a bit softer intentional feeding. I did my best to die as many times as possible, but I also did my best to do lots of damage at the same time. All of this was pretty pointless because I did not get banned from this game. On second game I used same strategy as on first experiment. This is different from first game that I don't try to deal any damage to enemies. This game also went as I expected and I did not get banned. On third game I used same strategy as I used in second experiment. This means I am not leveling up my abilities and I am not going to buy any items. If this strategy doesn't get my main account banned, then I don't know what I could even do to get myself banned. I will then end my experiment and claim that there is no intentional feeding detection in Aram game mode. On next day after logging back to League I did not get banned despite intentional feeding 3 games in a row. As a result, Riot's improved automated intentional feeding detection system can't detect intentional feeding in Aram game mode. I am wondering what is the reason Riot doesn't have intentional feeding detection in Aram. I came up with different reasons why Riot has not implemented intentional feeding detection in Aram. I do not know if any of these are actually true, but these are only what I came up with. Just remember that ticket reports might get you banned, but automated system can't detect intentional feeding. In next episode I am experimenting intentional feeding in Summoner's Rift.